So my job is understanding what the client is looking for, their investment goals, how much risk they can take, make sure you have a good portfolio that makes money and does not lose money all at once is by having a diversified portfolio.
Welcome to She Talks Business. In this episode, we have Saniya Bilal, a luxury real estate investment advisor who has been involved in investment deals across Canada, UAE, and Pakistan.
From investments in infrastructure real estate like the Gatwick Airport to luxury apartments in Karachi, Saniya now advises high net worth individuals on how to invest in, manage, and design exits for their real estate portfolios.
Hi, Saniya. Welcome to She Talks Business.
Thank you so much.
Saniya, so I am really excited to have this conversation with you because you are a real estate boss lady. So, and I'm going to jump right into the questions because we're going to pick your brain. From the CPP Investment Board to the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority and then YAS Real Estate.
Yes.
How did you end up in real estate?
So basically, I worked for Canada Pension Fund right after my undergrad, and I specialized within the private equity space. In Canada, there's a big focus on energy. So I was part of energy and infrastructure team. So infrastructure meaning pipelines that are used to transport oil and gas.
Right.
Did that for a couple of years till I was in Toronto till 2017. Then moved to UAE after I got married. And Canada Pension Fund and Abu Dhabi Pension Fund, they co-invest on a lot of deals. So I knew the team at ADIA, the investment authority, and basically got in touch with them and started with them right away.
Right.
And how the teams are structured at ADIA, it's not energy and infrastructure, it is infrastructure and real estate.
Oh.
Yes. So we were essentially buying real estate like Gatwick Airport, Mumbai Airport that offers an infrastructure service. So my specialization was still infrastructure, but real estate that gives an essential infrastructure service like toll roads, highways, airports, seaports, all of that stuff. Fast forward to when I moved to Pakistan, nobody's selling or buying airports here, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it's just real estate and it's essentially residential, commercial, and industrial. And funny enough, that's the only asset class where people have made money. So stocks are still a very small portion of the whole investable capital. People don't generally like interest because the association with riba.
Yes.
But everybody in Pakistan and also in the emerging countries are very much keen on investing in real estate for either rental or the capital appreciation income.
Right.
So given the background and where I was, the region, real estate was the asset class that made sense.
It seemed like an easy transition.
Yeah.
I mean, fair enough. So can you tell us more about your work at YAS Real Estate?
Yes.
And what you do in particular?
Sure. Most of my job is I meet with high net worth clients who have a portfolio fund that they want to have diversification benefits. Mm-hmm. So some invested in stocks, some invested in bonds, some invested in real estate, some invested in gold or other commodities. So my job is understanding what the client is looking for. Their investment goals, how much risk they can take. So some people are generally more risk averse than others, and understanding their time horizon. So you can be a client who has to send your child to university. So you need good amount of money coming to you in form of returns 5 years down the road. Or you could be a client who is 65 years old and just want an ongoing small amount of money coming so you can run your house. So I understand all of that. And I understand what else they have in their portfolio. I then advise them which asset within the real estate stream of things will make sense. Should they buy in Islamabad or Karachi? I cover Dubai and Toronto as well.
Right.
And should they be going for rental income? Should they be going for capital appreciation? Should they be going for ready property like buying a house? Should they be going for an apartment? Should they be buying industrial land? Things like that. So it is basically investment advisory, specializing in real estate,
right,
coupled with being associated with all your good and reputable builders in these 4 cities.
Right.
So I can mix and match and tell the client that XYZ makes the most sense from a return perspective for your total portfolio, wealth creation basically.
Okay. That's really interesting. I mean, and obviously you ended up saying it, but in my brain it was like, oh, so this is like investing, but instead of stocks, it's like in real estate.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Because again, there's more money within the real estate side of things in Pakistan. And in order to give stock advisory, you need to have XYZ licenses and be affiliated
Right.
with one of the financial services companies. So I do real estate advisory, but obviously to give advice that how much you should put in real estate, I need to know how much is in XYZ other things. From the client perspective, the real estate knowledge is mostly localized. So if you have lived in Karachi, you have had exposure here, you know of what works here. You may or may not know of what happens in other cities, other countries. So when you're taking advice from your brother or your friends or your, relatives within your network, their information is often also localized. So that means your portfolio will not have the diversification,
Yeah.
right? And at the end of the day, how you make sure you have a good portfolio that makes money and does not lose money all at once is by having a diversified portfolio.
Right.
So as long as there is a sizable portfolio, you want to protect it.
Yeah.
And in a, ideally further increase it, right? So if something is localized, then you don't want to stick with only that pool of information. You need to have information from other sources as well. That's the first thing. And the second thing is in terms of the cost benefit analysis, you incur a very small cost for the advisory fee, and the benefit that you can gain by having that good diversified portfolio is a lot more than that. For example, somebody living in Karachi, as of right now, earning in PKR, spending in PKR, has the biggest fear of inflation
Yes.
not matching their income.
Right.
And most of our inflation is imported inflation,
Yeah.
right? Because we are importing all the essential goods and services as of this point. So what happens is people are looking for exposure to a currency that does not appreciate, so potentially US dollar. And they want to know, how can I have exposure to that currency? Somebody who does own brokerage only in Karachi and has no exposure of outside will not be able to guide you. So your friends, family obviously will not know that unless they do it as a profession.
Yeah.
There are a couple of properties in Islamabad where you can earn income in US dollars.
Right.
So that's something people find out and they're amazed. And I'm talking about people with like deep pockets,
Yeah.
right? Because they have lived, raised, did everything in Karachi, and they think the only way to have exposure to US dollar is by buying something in Dubai. And ease of funds, getting that money into Dubai is not easy.
Yeah.
And NAB, FBR, and all of that will give you a lot of trouble if you're caught doing that.
Right.
So it turns out there's an much easier way of doing the same thing in Islamabad.
Right.
And all of that, this is just an example of what becomes available to you if you
Right.
get specialist
Got
advice.
Got it.
The second thing is all the high-end builders are not gonna go and talk to each individual investor. They want something in between, intermediary. They call it the real estate consultants, which is us working for high-end developers like Imar, for example. So in a structured market, you have a developer working with all the intermediaries, telling them we have XYZ available, and these people then go and match it with the right investors.
Right.
So we are that people in the middle.
Got it.
My advice is not meant for someone who is trying to save an extra few bucks here and there. We won't be able to see eye to eye. We work exclusively with people who have, high net worth clients, who have good enough funds that they want to have a portfolio approach to it,
Yeah.
want diversification and exposure, and also have post acquisition services as well. So it's not just I tell you go buy X and that's the end of the day. We also help them with asset management.
Got it.
And then also the exit strategy. So you bought XYZ, you kept it for a few years. What do you do after? How do you materialize gains?
Right.
So we also help them time it, how to exit, when to exit, so you have the highest return potential. So all of that becomes available with
Right.
the specialist advice.
Right.
And since I'm a CFA charter holder, I'm allowed to give investment advice across the globe.
Right.
That means I have the right training, educational training, and also worked in the field of investments at an authorized institution for 4 years before I got my charter.
Right.
So it's as specialist as it can get when it comes to investment advisory, basically.
responsible investment advice.
Yes.
So having access to someone like you, your advisory services, is it accessible to like someone who isn't necessarily like earning in millions, or like if someone who has like who has saved up a certain amount of money and wants to invest, but I feel like the concept of coming to a consultant like you would seem intimidating because अच्छा मेरे पास इतने पैसे तो नहीं है कि मैं consultant के पास जाऊँ. Are you handling portfolios of people who aren't just necessarily like the dollars?
No, very fair question. So to answer that, someone who is earning month by month and saving a small portion of it, we're not talking about crazy amounts of money here, but wants to start saving and investing for a better future. So we don't get paid by the clients in that situation. So if I'm selling you, say, an apartment which is available on payment plan, maybe an MR project, MR will take care of what needs to be paid for me for my time. You as a client, there's no cost incurred to you.
Got it.
And you can start with as little as 3 lakh per month and have eventual ownership of a very high-end property in Karachi. And if you go with the tier even below that, I have team who takes care of that as well. So you understand the notion of payment plan. So basically how payment plan will work is there's something that is under construction. It will take 4 years. The builder does not need all the money today. Because he has to spend only on buying steel. Then a year down the road, when the grey structure is ready, he will be buying interiors or whatever, right? So it is called milestone funding. He does not need money on day one. So that's good for you because you don't need to pay on day one. They'll make you a payment plan that matches with their construction plan. And slowly, you keep giving some money every month. Some projects it's a few lakhs, some projects it's maybe a bit more. And at the end of that 3-year or the 4-year time frame, depending on what the project timeline was, you will become the owner of that property.
And I feel like coming to someone like you would sort of alleviate the fears that a lot of people have in के मेरे पैसे किसी fraud project में फंस ना जाए.
It is tricky, I'll be honest with you. It took me some time as well to navigate that. And the idea is I want to have repeat clients. I want to have, there's a lot of, my whole work is based on trust. Okay, and trust is something जिसके अंदर compounding effort
absolutely
चाहिए होती है, and I want someone to feel safe when they're disclosing their numbers and what they want to achieve. So what we offer, anything that you find on our website, is all the stuff that we have done very rigorous due diligence on. And how I simplify for my clients is, what I'm telling you to buy, I would buy the same thing with my own money.
Okay, I think that seems fair.
तो वो due diligence बहुत ज़रूरी है, especially in a society like ours, because sometimes developers start working without having the right paperwork. So our big thing I tell all my team is, we have to make money the right way. We don't have to make too much. But anything that we make should be fully justified, so we can all go to bed with the peace of mind and sleep well at night, basically.
And know that people will tell other people about you.
That's how it works, So word of mouth is huge, and due diligence needs to be taken very, very seriously.
So what, like, for me, finding out that real estate is sort of, I mean, of course, we know कि इसमें पैसा लोग अपना सेव करते हैं. It's like an asset. I think we all know it, but we never categorize, because in our heads, investment is stocks and trading. But property and real estate is a new one for me. It's like, what other things qualify as like investment opportunities?
So investment is anything where you sacrifice your happiness today for a better future tomorrow. So you save. You don't spend the 100% of your salary today. You spend 80, 20%. You put in something that should give you return. Return can come in the form of ongoing payments like dividends जो stock से मिलते हैं, rental income जो property से मिलती है, or it comes at the end of a lump sum payment which happens in cases of capital appreciation. All of that is called investment because it grows. Right? Some of the asset classes are stocks, which is just buying piece of a company. So ownership in Engro is called buying stocks. Right? Then you have fixed income, also called bonds, which is lending money to banks or corporations, when you're lending, they're supposed to give you interest.
Are these the government bonds?
Yes, that's
Okay.
the core example in Pakistan called National Savings Bond.
Yes.
हर कोई लेता है,
Yes.
So उसके अंदर basically you can either have ongoing interest or you can have a lump sum payment at the end of 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. So that's your second asset class called fixed income or bonds, because उसमें आपकी income return जो है वो fixed है.
Right.
या interest payment या end में आपको पता है आपको कितने मिलेंगे.
Right.
Stocks हो गया, fixed income हो गया, then you have real estate.
Right.
Real estate includes any property, residential, commercial, industrial,
Yeah.
and the form of returns are rental income or capital appreciation.
Right.
Capital appreciation hai, I bought this office for 80 rupees, I sold it for 100 rupees.
Yeah.
20 rupees is the increase in price. We
Right.
call it capital gain or capital appreciation. How my capital appreciated from 80 to 100.
Got it.
Right? And if you use it as a rental space, whatever you pay me will be rental income. Then we have physical commodities. Gold leke rakh liya. That's also an investment. So
Yes.
you bought gold. For example, when I got married in 2017, gold was 57 rupees per tola.
Yeah.
Now it is 257.
Yes.
So anyone who bought gold and kept it maybe in the locker or whatever has made so much money now. So that is also an investment class.
Yeah.
And in subcontinent, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, that's a big asset class.
Yeah.
We all save.
That's how all our educations and our marriages get funded.
Yes.
Gold nikala.
Gold
bech
liya,
liya.
rakh liya, basically the gold bars, the gold coins.
Exactly.
So that's also a very big investment class. Then some people do committees.
Yes.
So that's helping you pool funds together. It is, I would say, the very basic and the starting.
It's like a saving.
Yeah, but then as long as you put it in something that grows, it is also an investment class. Because in countries like, Pakistan, India, subcontinent, there's not a lot of education.
Yeah.
Investor education, awareness.
But committees don't grow.
You can take that pool of fund, you get a big chunk of fund, and that helps you have exposure to something like
Right.
a small property that otherwise you wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So it is a tool of saving, and hopefully at the end of that saving, it will be utilized not to travel or consume, but to invest. But that varies.
Fine.
I mean, so basically, a lot of people struggle with saving.
Yes,
Once you have the money,
absolutely.
you have extra money that you don't need to spend.
Yes.
You will put it in some hopefully useful thing. If not, you will put it in a bank.
Yeah.
That gives you some interest.
Yeah.
Committees help you save and give you access to a big chunk of money at once.
Yes.
And then, as long as it's not used for today's consumption, hopefully it's being kept for future consumption, and we call that investment.
No lies. I love committees because I cannot access that money.
So it locks it for you.
In terms of saving, I've
Yes.
tried opening the alternate bank account.
Yeah.
I've tried.
Some people freeze their credit cards.
I've tried hiding the money. I've tried everything, but I find it. I'll access the account. I'll
Yeah.
fill it out, and I will spend that money I was hiding from myself. But with committees, I have
Yeah,
zero
there's that
access to
social aspect to it,
Yeah,
right?
I have zero access to that money
Yeah.
because someone's taken it away from me. It's my money. It's safe. It'll come back to me, but not when I shouldn't get access to it.
Yeah, so what people do generally for committees, they tie up the committee payment with a huge,
Yeah, milestone or something that
Yes.
they need to spend. Absolutely.
like paying for someone's education
Yeah.
or, buying those national savings bonds.
Yes. So if this is like an education.
So it is the prereq to
Yes.
investment essentially.
So again, like if someone wants to get into investing, whether it's in stocks or bonds or whether it's property or something, what is the minimum that one should think about having? Okay, even with committees, there's a certain the average woman is putting money into a committee that's getting her a few lakhs maybe or a few thousand or whatever. She's not getting her committee return. The average woman is not getting the committee return that will help her invest in property. What do you think is the bare minimum someone should have to make like a decent investment?
Okay, so real estate is not just buying the whole piece of land. You
Yeah.
can have a fraction of that land. So there's a concept of fractionalization within real estate.
Got it.
You can own a piece of Dolmen Mall with very less money. And how they do it, it's called REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust. So Dolmen, for example, owns the whole tower.
Right.
They don't sell it.
Right.
They rent it.
Yeah.
And they generate rental income.
Yeah.
So they have converted from being a developer to a REIT.
Right.
REIT is Real Estate Investment Trust, which is registered on your exchange.
Right.
Very much like Engro or any other stock. Right? And everyone can buy piece of Dolmen Mall as of right now by owning shares in that REIT.
Can I?
Yeah, you can.
That's awesome.
I think with as little as 100 rupees or something.
What?
Yeah. So whatever rental income they will generate from those shops, those offices, that will be the income of the company called Dolmen REIT. That will be at the end of the fiscal year will be distributed. I think the rule is around 90% of the income needs to be redistributed, given back to the shareholders as dividends. So you don't need to have like millions of rupees and buying up, big properties. Just
So that's the problem. I feel like this lack of information is the barrier to entry.
as of right now, SSCP's mandate is also to give more REIT licenses.
That's
So there are
amazing.
more options. I think we have right now maybe 2. It's Dolmen and one other TPL maybe.
Yeah.
But that's buying small percentage in a company that manages real estate.
That's amazing.
It's very much like Engro, a company that makes fertilizers.
So I've heard of the concept of tokenization of property, which is when multiple people sort of pool in money and buy the same property.
Yeah.
Isn't that like a recipe for disaster for like in terms of ownership, and how do you sort of like the people who are investing their money into this property, how do they figure out the paperwork, the ownership, the sort of like how much entitlement do I have over this property? If one
Right.
person wants to like bail, or if one person's like, Becho, I want my investment back.
How does it work?
How does it work?
So we talk about real estate investment trust, the Dolmen example. It's very comparable in a sense that दोनों allow कर रहे हैं making real estate accessible. और small investment आप कर सकते हो.
Yes.
Fraction ले सकते हो. पूरा property नहीं लेनी. The difference is real estate investment trust is highly regulated और वो एक stock की तरह stock market पे operate करता है. Whereas tokenization or the tokens, they operate on blockchain technology. So there's a level of unregulation that goes into it. Okay. And that also means it's very early on in its, stage basically. But in terms of how you make money is you own a portion, a small, say 1% of the whole property. If the property grows by say 100 rupees, you get 1 rupee for it because you just owned 1% off.
Right.
But if you want to sell, it's like buying or selling anything that has liquidity like stocks. You say, I want to sell, somebody else will buy it off you, and that's the end of
Okay,
it.
got it.
So it operates like a stock, very similar to real estate investment trust. REIT, which is what we have in Pakistan. Tokenization, we don't have it yet. It's super early days for it. There's no regulation as such in comparison to REIT, but at the end of the day, they both are trying to solve the problem that is real estate usually are considered chunky investments.
Yes.
You cannot have less money and be an owner in a property.
And this is making it more accessible.
Yes.
Got it.
But in terms of more secure, REIT is the better way to go.
Are there any tips for people who want to do what you're doing? In the sense that, when you're a luxury seller, there are certain prerequisites that come with sort of, is it building a profile? Is it having a certain background, education background, the qualifications, like you're telling me that a lot of people here aren't qualified to advise on investment, etc. But like to be a luxury seller, whether it's property or anything, what are the qualifications? What is that profile?
Yeah. So, Khizra, I'll be very candid with you. When I moved to Pakistan, so I am from Islamabad, lived there till 2009, did my A-levels and then left Pakistan.
Okay.
I'm a Pakistani and a Canadian national.
Yeah.
I did all my schooling in Canada and moved back to Pakistan in 2019 and 2020. So after like 11 years of living outside.
Yeah.
I had never worked in Pakistan in a job. I was 17 when I left. Didn't even have a bank account.
Right.
Let alone have anything else.
Yeah.
So when I came back and I explored, it was right COVID as well. I had my baby at the same time. So a lot of change, new city, new family dynamics, a pandemic that nobody knows what's going on. So I also had to figure out कि exactly करना क्या है. So I started with Barrier Town. I also explored Scheme 33, Scheme 44. These are not luxury segments of the market.
Yeah.
Okay. And then also explored Emaar because top level management of Emaar is also a CFA charter holder, so that was part of my sort of network. So explored that. मेरा issue ये था कि if I'm trying to give advice to a client, I need to understand my client. There's a thing called KYC, know your client. They also need to understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And you can only do well when you can see eye to eye on a lot of things.
Yes.
My issue was the language being spoken by barrier town brokers and also the clients being spoken by scheme 33, 45 is not something I can do.
Right.
So I struggled with that. I had a team of 20 sales agents specializing in barrier town. I had a whole office there, wasted a lot of money only to realize that's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Again, not trying to be pretentious or anything, but so real estate is a lot of trust, credibility. So you start with your network and you grow. And it's a lot of word of mouth, like you said.
Yeah.
For me, this segment, the luxury segment, is the one that I can relate to, I can talk to, and advise them on. So I pivoted to this because this was the only thing that was making money for me.
Okay, that's fair.
Like in terms of lead generation, I would get leads from everywhere. In terms of actual closing of those leads, this was the area that was working for me. So after 1.5, 2 years of spending time, energy and effort, going back and forth between Barrier Town and all these outskirts areas of Karachi, I pivoted to this. So this is a long way of saying, I don't think you can start and be like, I want to do luxury and I will do XYZ and get there.
Got it.
Like how I could not do the masses. I tried to.
Yeah.
There's so many people in Karachi. I would like to sell them property and do well for my business, but I just couldn't. So I think if somebody has a banking experience, they're able to do well with the clients who are in that field. If somebody has women who do committees and are able to do at the grassroots level, they could do really well in maybe Barrier Town and the places close to it. Keep it now. If we take a step out of Pakistan, in Dubai, in North America, people who do luxury real estate usually have background in luxury sales, either cars, handbags, jewelry, wherever they had exposure to people with good amount of money, high net worth clients.
Got it.
Because real estate is generally not people's first choice of work.
Right.
They start with XYZ. They have a pool of people who trust on them.
Yes.
And have credibility with them, and then they pivot into real estate. So I think the biggest key takeaway to do well in real estate, especially the luxury side of it, is you need to work really hard on trust and credibility.
Yeah.
Because people with money are usually expert in one of their fields. That's how they generated money, and they're able to see through the person. So if you're BSing or making stuff up, it's easy to tell.
Yeah.
So if you don't have advice, tell them, be candid that you don't have the right knowledge to guide them on XYZ.
Yeah.
And that will help you a lot, in the long run as well, as opposed to just winging it.
That makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
So, in terms of real estate, and when you came back, I mean, it's the same property that everyone in your position is sort of has access to.
Yes.
You're all bidding and selling the same property.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming there's a lot of gatekeeping also, because everyone's trying to sort of protect the property that they're working with so that they sell it. And they, how do you navigate that? Because I'm pretty sure it's competitive.
It is very competitive. And you're very absolutely right that people are very cagey when it comes to stuff like this. But we've had clients go to our competition, but we've also had clients come back to us. And I think the mentality, you have to differentiate between being very short-term focused or having a long-term mentality. So whenever a client tells me that it's okay, I already bought it, or it's okay, I bought it with XYZ, I don't like host them and be like, you're dead to me.
Sure.
I tell them I'm happy and I hope whatever decision you have made leads to the output that you were expecting.
Yeah.
In case you need anything,
We're here.
we're here. Right? And that is what I believe in. So it's not like I'm faking it. I want to be genuinely helpful to people in need of help or advice, and it does not have to always be tied with any monetary gain at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And as a client, I also appreciate when people are not money focused with me all the time.
Yeah.
Right? So that helps us with clients either coming or staying with us the first time around or going somewhere else, not getting good service, especially after service.
Yeah.
Because once you have sold an apartment, you've gotten your commission from the developer, in this case Imar, you can essentially ghost your client and that be the end of it. Because the client was very open and candid with you from day one that this is the only money they have.
Yeah.
So you know there's going to be no repeat sale with them. So why waste money
Yeah.
and effort on them? But what I try to do, to the extent it's possible, we have a team that takes care of, we call it asset management. That is, once the client has bought something, in case they have any concerns, they can come to us. If they don't feel like, they can just ring up Imar's client number.
Yeah.
Because it's a very personalized and human touch service. So for example, I was talking to someone yesterday. They bought 2 apartments. Now they're trying to combine and move the funds they have paid for the 2 apartments into one. I got my commission last year, so I could have just be like, this is the number of the person sitting in the developer office, contact him.
Sure.
That's a you problem, right?
Yeah.
But what I said was, listen, I will get everything sorted and then I told him the process, that your son needs to go sign a few paperwork there, that he is letting go of his apartment and that money will be transferred into the other siblings' apartment. And listen, so this is the process. He needs to be there in person. In case it cannot be managed, let me know and I will try to facilitate. Somebody from my office will go to the developer office, get the paperwork, come to your wherever work or house, wherever you need, get it done and send it back to them. It's an added cost at the end of the day for me, but that was my client. So that is my responsibility towards him.
And it's also an investment into a long-term relationship.
Basically, because it's at the end of the day, this is all relationship management.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Exactly.
And that helps me sleep better at night as well. So there's a selfish reason that yes, I would want them to come to me for their future purchases, but there's an emotional reason that I want to be happy with what I do.
Yeah, for sure. How do you set a value to a piece of property? Like, how do you decide this is regular property and this is luxury property? Like, apart from the fact that अच्छा ये DHA में है, ये Clifton में है, but like a lot, there's a lot of people are like KDA is the high value property, ये property. How do you decide that? And how do we fall into these sort of trends?
These categories and
trends.
Okay, so I'm going to answer how we classify properties, not how we value properties.
Sure.
Okay? Because that's a whole different field and very technical. I'm happy to discuss that as well.
But let's focus on that.
So the first one is, any property is essentially a combination of 2 things. The cost of the land.
Okay.
That is where you're being in DHA versus being in non-DHA comes into play. The second is the cost of construction.
Okay.
And so cost of land is where you're located. Obviously, in countries like Pakistan or really across the globe, your gated communities will always have more cost of land versus your non-gated communities. So KDA is more pricier, NHS, Navy housing, close to Zamzama, pricier. DHA quasi-gated, you have, check post and all of that. So this is all at a premium than your Johor property.
Yeah.
Just piece of land. Just a plot.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of it. कि कहाँ पे ज़मीन महंगी है.
ठीक है.
ज़मीन वहाँ महंगी है जहाँ infrastructure बेहतर है.
Okay.
जहाँ there's gated, there's more security, there's better,
facilities nearby.
Facilities, no overhanging cables and all of that. There's gas, there's electricity, all of that. So that is all covered with the piece of land.
Sure.
Then the second thing that is important in terms of understanding luxury versus non-luxury is the construction quality. Did you use a cheaper tile? Did you use a more expensive tile? Did you have, I don't want to use imported fittings, but that is what it is. Did you have like Grohe or other imported sanitary fittings versus a local or a cheaper version, for example?
Got it.
So that all differentiates luxury versus non-luxury as well.
Got it.
So again, parcel of land, piece of land, that cost plus the cost of construction. As of right now, you can do construction of 3,000 rupees per square footage to 13,000 or 15,000 rupees per square footage.
Okay.
So if in this same room we use small size tiles, छोटी 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 हम साथ इकट्ठे करके हम पूरा कवर कर लेंगे, it will cost me much cheaper than using 2 or 3 big tiles.
Okay.
Right? And that increases the cost.
Got
So more expensive because the cost spent was more, because the quality delivered was higher. All of that turns into what we call luxury in real estate.
Okay, got
And then obviously that resonates better with the people who have deeper pockets. And that is also a way to understand luxury is where people with money are staying.
Yeah. ठीक है. That makes sense.
But it's linked, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you can look at one thing in isolation. The people with money have appreciation for XYZ and the affordability for better quality, so they pay for that. And the builder takes that information and says,
Got it,
okay,
got it,
now
got
I
it.
need to even do better than what I did last time.
Right. Okay. So, and with property, and especially luxury property, the stakes are very high. So how do you protect yourself from like potential fraud or like a deal gone very wrong? Because if something goes wrong, you're at like the losing end completely. How do you protect yourself in these situations?
So real estate as an asset class is high risk, high return.
Yeah.
In terms of as a client or even as a broker, someone who's helping the client, due diligence is of the essence. Making sure that the builder has good track record. So what they have done in the last 10 years, how
Yeah.
did that pan out? And also making sure all the paperwork is in place.
Got it.
So you need a few people with legal background.
Yeah.
Again, by making those mistakes, learning by doing, we now only work with a handful of builders, but we know those guys are not going to take the money and run away with it.
Okay.
So everything checks out, and this is very important for luxury because you are paying the top dollar, so you need to make sure all of those. We have a checklist that we go through.
Yeah.
And for each project we are selling, we have a document on its track record.
Got it.
So we share that, and if somebody has a legal team, we call them into the developers or the builder's office, and we have all the paperwork, and there's a meeting of lawyers from both sides to make sure everything checks out.
Okay. What are some of the regulatory and compliance challenges that you are facing in Pakistan, particularly in terms of like real estate sector?
As a developer, there's a whole host of issues. You need permits. So if you operate in DHA, you need the NOCs and permits through the CBC DHA.
Yeah.
As a broker, there's not a lot of regulation, to be honest with you. Like in Canada, I need to be a licensed broker in order to sell something.
Yes.
In Pakistan, you could be selling real estate and nobody's going to stop you.
Got it.
So that makes it a lot more challenging and complicated for the clients because it's not like you got a license, you got the training to say what you're saying. And it's a funny one, but a lot of brokers try to like do big talk that I have X, Y, Z.
Yes.
And there's no way to know unless you actually have access to their bank accounts. So it's really easy to fool someone who is very naive, but there's no regulation.
Yeah.
You can, like for example, we have a strict policy. We don't do any cash handling.
Oh, really? Okay.
We don't. So somebody wants to buy, somebody wants to sell. We, for example, take people into the developer's office where all the money management is being done. But I know of people who are, having lived through these nightmares where they gave money to a broker thinking that they were the ones facilitating that, and that broker basically is nowhere to be found.
Wow.
And legal structure is not that rock solid as well in Pakistan, that if it's a small amount of money, you were trying to buy something, a few lakhs maybe, the amount of money you will spend in legal fee to get that money back is going to be more. So
wow. Man.
So yeah, it's that's why trust is going to be your best friend.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
So how do economic indicators such as inflation, interest rates, and employment rates impact the real estate market?
So real estate has both consumption and investment. And when people have more money, they want to upgrade their lifestyle. There's also a concept of urbanization, people moving from rural, small cities into bigger cities. All of that drives real estate markets. Then there's employment, more people employed, more people getting salary, more people having that money.
Yeah.
You get some money, you use some of it, then you have the remaining money, you invest, and that comes into real estate. Higher unemployment, nobody with money,
Yeah.
just getting by, meeting the basic requirements. Nobody cares about real estate.
Yeah.
So high employment, higher prices for real estate. High urbanization, higher prices for real estate.
Right.
Interest rate. So interest rate, what is interest rate? It is a cost of borrowing. I don't have money, I borrow from the bank. Interest is the expense that I have to incur to borrow that money. If
Right.
interest rate is very less, it's super easy for me to borrow money.
Yes.
So I borrow more.
Yeah.
I borrow and I get a big house.
Yeah.
So lower interest rates, higher real estate pricing.
Yeah.
And then what other thing we talked about? And overall, when you have better economic indicators, there's khushhali in economy.
Yes,
People have
absolutely.
money. They're either buying their first house or upgrading or buying the investment, property. Because first you need your house, then you move to investments. Everything starts with having money in your pocket.
Thank you so much, Saniya.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being on She Talks Business. This was honestly an education. And for me, and I'm pretty sure for anyone else who's watching, there were so many sort of pieces of real estate wisdom or investment wisdom and so many completely new concepts that I didn't know of. And like I said, I'm definitely going to be hitting up your WhatsApp.
No, I'm really thankful for asking all the good questions. I hope I didn't give too
No,
technical
this was-
responses
no,
and it was easy to follow.
That's what I said, that the way you're giving me all of this information is so palatable because it's not overwhelming me. It's actually making me even more curious and it's even more intriguing. So thank you so much for being on She Talks Business.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be back again with another amazing guest next time. Thank you.
If you found this episode interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.